Okay, this is it. This is the one. This is the first official episode. And I'm not sure you can even hear me.
Oh, no, I can. I just am not sure. I am not as sure as you are that it's the first official episode. Okay, so here's a fun list of things to do. Okay, everyone, when you start a podcast, an important thing to do is have a launch date. I think that is a good thing that you should set before you start. Having now done this without a launch date, that was our mistake. We should have arbitrarily picked a date a while ago.
Yeah, I agree.
That's our bad. There's number one.
Okay.
Number two. What other tips, helpful tips can we have? Should have a very fun intro. I think we should have danced or something. I don't know. Dancing doesn't make sense. This is an audio thing. Papa, a little song. Whenever you are, Sam was like 3 minutes late to today's recording session.
My
very
laptop needed battery.
When that happens, I revisit my early days in the radio. My father runs radio stations. The first time I was on the radio was April 1st, 1999. They were getting a new morning show host. They were teasing that there was going to be a new co-host, and whole new morning show. Hooray for, weeks they were announcing this. And then April 1st rolled around, and it was my brother and I just saying nonsense as
Tell me you have a recording of this.
I hope so.
Yeah.
There's got to be a tape somewhere. But it was, it was us just talking about, like Michael W. Smith over and over, because usually when you're recording, pre-recording a show, you are pre-recording the show into the slot that it's going to play your thing, and you know how long you need, like this is a 30-second break. You need to talk for 30 seconds. But we didn't have that because we were recording like 4 days beforehand because we weren't waking up at 5 a.m. to do this. And so we just kept reading the same three people over and over. So like comically bad things. And then we had people call in. So we did like pre-screenings. My father called in as a Southern man who was in charge of something in, like Texas and really wanted to hire the new talent away. And then my mom is the person who comes into the studio and is like, what are you doing? We have to take you to school. Rips us away. We scream and yell, and there's like a whole little bit. And then there's just like 15 minutes of dead air.
So professional. So this is all, you lost me a little bit. Is this all staged? Like this whole...
Yeah, so we recorded it a few days beforehand and then played it April 1st. So like my mom woke us up at 5 a.m. so we could listen to ourselves on the radio.
That's pretty awesome. You
and then
get a copy of this.
When she screamed, came in and was like, you guys gotta be in school. It's time to go to school. And then like we were like, no, we're professionals now. Dragged us away. And then dead air, which is bad, like super bad.
Yeah.
10 seconds of dead air on a radio station, like people are losing their mind.
Switch. Yeah, they immediately switch to...
and so there's just like 15 minutes as a joke, and then the new morning show host came on. But during that time, I sang the call sign, because you have to do a call sign at the top of the hour per FCC rules, which is why you hear, like, hello, this is 100.3 Kiss FM. Yeah, they're like legally required to announce that every hour at the top of the hour. And so I sang ours as just a little 89.5 FM KTSY.
And that's allowed. It's totally fine to sing it.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It just the numbers just need to get out there anyway. I mean, I don't know. The FCC probably could have fined us for this, but like,
just curious.
Whatever. I'm 9.
Is there a legal age that is required to be on like publicly broadcast without like parental consent of some kind? You don't think so? Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm sure it's the same as any other entertainment child thing. But my parents had parental consent because my dad was the general manager. Anyway, every time you're gone or I'm sitting here waiting for a few minutes, I just sing myself 89.5 FM KTSY.
I love that. And now you have planted this in my head, so I'm not going to feel guilty if I'm 5 minutes late.
Yeah, I'm just sitting here singing to myself. I do this.
I like it.
Every opportunity, like every Zoom meeting, even if like my therapist is late for a few minutes, I'm just like sitting here singing an old tune.
I like it. Okay, so lessons learned. I do think it would have been nice to have a set date, but it was also very much a giant experiment for the first couple episodes. We didn't know what we were doing.
That's very fair.
Any other podcasts I've been a part of, you generally just you don't take any time to like create a back catalog of test recordings as you're like figuring things out. Most people just start posting, and I think most podcasts really don't have much of a schedule either, except for actual commercial ones that have real ad money behind them.
Well, hey, one day that could be us.
Yeah, it could be us. Yeah.
Oh, here's a great one that I've learned that I should have done a long time ago, and this is on me. And one of the reasons that I'm a little worried that the next episode is going to be the one that's actually released as the first episode.
10 episodes from now, we're like, the next one, though, for real. This is going to be like naming the thing. This is going to exactly.
We will one day launch this thing. No, so write your show notes and write what happened in the episode immediately after it's over.
So I was hoping to leverage ChatGPT because the app we used to the app we used to record dumps an entire transcript for you, which is really cool. But I guess there are limits to how much you're allowed to paste into Chat. It would have been easy to just copy the entire transcript, paste it, ask for a paragraph summary. It would probably do a good enough job.
We should probably include that transcript when we release them, but now I need to make a transcript page on somewhere.
There's also captioning. And quick question. I feel like I remember YouTube having automatic subtitles and captioning. I forget the difference between what a subtitle is and what a caption is. Closed caption. But I feel like they used to have that. Did they get rid of that feature? Because every time I upload a video now, it asks and seems to require a subtitle file. I forgot what it's called. There's like a standardized extension for subtitles. And I feel like they might have gone away with it. Let's see.
Auto-generated captions. It looks like a thing that you just turn on your own.
I'm going to have to take another look at that because it was one of the big things I was struggling against forever ago when I first started Patreon was like the language barrier. Most things in the early days I would just write. And so people that don't speak great English, I assume, would just like pop that into a translator and it was fine. But with videos, I was constantly getting asked, especially by people that speak Spanish, is there a translation available? And I would have to do the work of creating automatic translations. Google absolutely used to do, like you could just say auto-translate into Spanish and subtitles would do that. But I'm pretty sure that feature's gone now. Or maybe
so the auto generation is still there, but you have to turn it on for yourself. But then even like while you're watching the video, so you click into closed captioning and turn on auto generated. They're not great though, So
no, you're right. They never are. That's why there's a bunch of podcast editing apps that try and detect ums and other like weird gaps, and it's so awkward because it takes actually more work to listen and pay really close attention to where it messed up or not, because it just doesn't always detect an properly.
I hope they're not taking my ums from me. My ums are core to my brand.
It is interesting. I am curious, and I've always thought about from the perspective of a radio person, a lot of the craft of being a DJ is like figuring out your cadence and your rhythm and speed at which you talk and all that. But I wonder, with podcasts, like most people have the play throttled to be 1.5 or 2x. And I'm really curious if that informs or makes any difference to somebody who's more professional changing how they talk, knowing
I would love to know what I sound like at 2x, but not enough to actually do it. I can't, my brain cannot handle anything faster than 1x.
It's such a strange thing though that with narrated things, with people talking, everyone's generally comfortable, like it's a normal thing to speed it up or slow it down and it's not awkward. But we literally don't do that with anything else. It's not like anybody watches a Netflix show at 1.5 speed or listens to music at 1.5. Although I will say one of my favorite traditions especially when I recorded like a metal album, would be to put it through like the entire mix and the entire song through a speed thing and like 10x the speed, so it just sounded straight up like Alvin and the Chipmunks, like playing insanely fast punk. So fun. And anyway, just that.
We had a 45 record that we accidentally played as a 33 for a really long time. But it was like a Beach House album, and like Beach House is weird ephemeral music, and so we didn't notice for like a long
amazing.
time.
That's
long
life
time.
goals right there, to write a song that can be played at any speed. And
yeah, it's just like, this is just for the weird vibes. My voice is different when I'm recording a podcast versus when I would be using a radio voice versus a reading, because I do like public readings for essays and stuff I write. Like all of those voices are different. Cool. There's like my performance voice. Of course I used to do improv. Who didn't? There was a time when improv ruled the world. You didn't do improv? Of course you didn't. Well, I hope you don't make fun of me. See, just like there's podcast voice. That's a regular thing. But my radio voice is actually a couple octaves lower.
Oh, you go real deep.
It started because of when I was a teen. I did the overnights. So from 16 to 17, I did overnights from 12 a.m. to 5 a.m. on the radio station. So I legitimately recorded. And so I did, 89.5 FM KTSY. I'm Daniel. Thanks for joining us this evening. I know you got a lot of choices out there, and you're just here to listen to me talk. No, you're not. You're here to hear the next song from Michael W. Smith. Please enjoy him. And then right after that, you're going to... So I did like the slow...
Yeah.
Because I was,
pre-coffee in the middle of the night, if they come across you
right, but then we started ramping up by 5, so then it was like 89.5 FM KTSY. I'm Daniel. We're almost through the night, guys. We're doing really close, right, like that sort of thing.
Yes.
And then I also had my my youth pastor voice from being a youth. Like there's just so much. And then I did drama for years.
You weren't a youth pastor.
Of course I was.
You were a youth pastor?
As a youth. I was like a youth pastor as a youth.
Oh, I didn't know. I thought the youth pastor was like a sub pastor who was an adult but focused on just the kids.
Well, it can be both.
It can, I guess.
It can be both. So we had an adult youth pastor who oversaw the youth program, and then there was the youth other youth. I was a youth pastor, and then I ran the the youth group of older teens, so like the 14 through 17. I was in charge of that group. There was a preteen group, whatever, that sort of thing. Yeah, and then you just got
talk differently if you were live, like if this were live radio. Do you think the difference between it being live and being something recorded that in the back of your head you can edit informs and changes the way that you talk?
A little bit. I don't have a lot of control over the edits, right? Like you're doing the editing, so that doesn't, that part doesn't really click in. But I do know that if I say something really dumb or, stutter, stumble, like that, you're going to have to leave that one in because of that. But I know that you'll take that out in post. When you're live, you kind of narrow down what you're going to say and narrow your scope of what you're willing to talk about, because you want to make sure that you don't have any stumbled words. You want to make sure that you breathe at the right cadence and I never did the introductions. The thing that was always wild to me was the morning show host would do the introductions of concerts, right? Like he would MC a concert. So Jerry would hop up there and just speak for 90 seconds perfectly. And I know it's his job to know what 90 seconds is and how to speak in that. But he would speak perfectly about the thing and then introduce the band and then do 45 seconds in between and then, lead a donation round or prayer round or whatever, whatever the religious event was. And that always broke my brain, right? I can... during those same events, I could hop up and do a 2-hour improv set, easy breezy, right? Would fly by, wouldn't think about a thing. Someone would wave us off stage and I would be like, wow, we've only been out there for 20 minutes. And they're like, you've been up there for 2.5 hours, Sodden. And it's oh, people love improv in 2005. We really did.
It did have a moment. It
had a very strong moment. I am curious on the impact of what improv has done to millennials' sense of humor, right? I feel there's Jon Stewart from The Daily Show, Stephen Colbert, and like South Park and improv have like become like this terrible combination of how millennials make jokes.
I think
and
that's
like
very accurate. Actually, I remember seeing a post from Zoomers, I guess, somewhere, where the humor it's already completely different for them versus us, and it's like insanely dark. I can't remember. I'll have to try and find it, but it would be just a mashup of a bunch of random memes. You'd have to know, like, looking at this thing, whether it was a conversation or just like a drawing or an illustration, it was meant to be really, really funny, but it makes absolutely no sense unless you're specifically of a certain age and know how everything like interconnects in the back. So yeah, 100%. Each generation has their own kind of humor, which is really odd. But I want to go back to the live versus recorded thing. Did we talk about this after I gave my presentation at B&H a couple weeks ago?
What about it? Which part?
Okay. How, at least for me, I've always been fascinated by, and hopefully I'm not alone in this, but the ability to say, like, get up on a stage and talk for an hour without stumbling too much over my words, like, because it's live and it's in the moment, versus trying to say the easiest thing when it's recorded. Like this morning, I had to do a little voiceover to go along with a video, and it took me like a dozen takes to sit there and record a 30-second voiceover.
Yeah.
But I can stand in front of people and talk for 45 minutes straight without really fumbling at all, unless it's like part of the vibe. Like sometimes I do it on purpose just to, anyway. It's really fascinating to me. I don't know what that live versus recording is, but it's the same thing with musicians. And when generally they think they aren't being recorded, they fly through things like say there's a really tricky guitar part or something like that. Like in practice, it's great. As soon as you get like the microphone or whatever, even if the mic doesn't even matter, as soon as they know that you hit record, it's like this added layer of stress, or I don't know what it is. Maybe it's partly stress. Maybe it's, I know I can do it better. So you just don't commit the same way. It's really fascinating to me, the live versus recorded aspect. And podcasts are interesting because they kind of are a mix of both. I mean, obviously we're recording this, but it's more conversational. So I don't know. Is that just me? Have you ever noticed that, or do you just always talk beautifully?
I do not always talk beautifully.
Yeah.
I do not. I mean, I don't do a lot of voiceover, so I have trouble when I know things are being recorded for the first little bit, right? I never remember what I said during any presentation ever. Right, like I have
there with you on that. Yes.
Yeah, like I've given full hour-long talks on creativity or like the nature of the internet or building a community online or something in front of a client or at like a meetup or whatever, and just right, like I will prepare for it. I will make slides for it.
Oh, how did it go? It's like, can't say.
I had a lovely time, right? Like. I was very stressed the whole time, and like I had a like pit in my stomach, and everything was terrifying. And then it was done.
You do get nerves.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Yeah. Even though like which is odd. I never got that when I was doing plays, right? So like doing drama and plays in like a long form. We're talking like hours of memorized lines and set pieces and like main character in drama productions. Never got any nervousness as soon as like I stepped out on stage, right? Like as soon as I stepped out on stage, I was that person, right? I wasn't me anymore. I was that person. So it was very easy for me to disconnect my nervousness from that and just go be whomever.
Similar for me, just in terms of the closest approximation is like violin recitals. You'd have to do like a violin solo once a year. And once I realized that, like you said, as soon as you step out on stage, the nerves are going to go away. That made all the nerves go away for me forever. Like I don't get nervous at all anymore because I know that feeling is exactly what's going to happen. That's exactly how it's going to play out. But it is weird. It's like the entire experience of what you're doing, if it's a performance or whatever, kind of flows through you and you black out. In a certain way. That's why, I don't know, the B&H talks in particular are the only ones I've ever actually rehearsed. Of course, I've had slides and presentations and stuff, but I generally don't like practice them out loud. and timed them to be a really specific length. I just kind of have the presentation in my head and then hope for the best. But the B&H talks, I do rehearse, and I'm not actually sure it makes them better than other talks. So anyway, I don't know how we get on this topic. Does it? Okay.
It does. Rehearsing helps. You should rehearse, Sam. Keep rehearsing.
Well, it's interesting because, I started my workshops way back in 2012, right? And that's an 8-hour day of talking. Basically 8 hours straight of me talking, other than some Q&A or whatever.
Do you consider yourself an introvert or an extrovert?
Oh, definitely an introvert.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I have a habit of collecting introverts that I adore in my life, and so I just picked up that vibe of like, man, this guy, he's going to be tired of existing in a room with me, and he's going to love it. Great. That's my
the tired thing doesn't hit me too hard, but I'm just very comfortable being like by myself. Like I've had entire weeks where I haven't left the house, and it's not like a depressing thing. It's just don't want to go anywhere. I'm fine here. I have a lot to do, which works great for being self-employed and having to sit in front of a computer editing and everything else that goes on. But yeah, very introverted.
8-hour days, introverted. That's its own thing. But so how do you rehearse any of your workshop material?
How do you sit there and practice an 8-hour workshop? You don't. You just go and you do it, and then you iterate, and then you start to reach this flow state. I mean, I've probably done 60 plus workshops, like those full day ones, and certain times of the year, I used to call it March Madness, when it was really busy, 2014 to 2017. Like my March would be a different city every week, sometimes back-to-back workshop days, like a whole second group on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. And so it was exhausting. Yeah, it was just, you would get into this flow state, though, where everything you said was super polished. The jokes come across really well, even though it's the 5th time I've said it that week. Anyway, yeah, it was a really interesting experience to develop the whole process of doing a workshop.
When was your last workshop? Have you held
Last
one
year.
Recently? Last year?
I did one in Chicago, so that was actually the same thing. It was large enough groups, or large enough interest that I did 2 separate groups, 2 separate days, back to back. Yeah. Oof. So I think I'm going to do another one in a month and a half. I've got a huge mailing list, and pre-COVID, COVID really took the steam out of workshops, obviously, but not just the ability to do them, but my interest in doing them dropped as well. I need to ramp it up again. I might do one in Trinidad, which if you've never been, Trinidad and Tobago is amazing. I shot a wedding there and also taught a workshop there, but I'm starting to get some interest to go back there end of March maybe.
Okay, I'm pulling up Kayak and I'm checking a flight. Trinidad to Tobago.
Trinidad and Tobago. It's right next to Venezuela. But honestly, Tobago, they're 2 separate islands, same governing entity. Tobago is the one you want to go to in terms of resort Caribbean. Trinidad is beautiful and a much more influential culture, like steel drums. The entire instrument of playing a steel drum came from Trinidad because they are very their main industry is oil, and so they had a lot of oil drums, empty ones that they would punch out all these notes, and that's where they have this thing. I can't remember what it's called, but it's a yearly, sort of like a festival, where they actually have steel drum orchestras essentially, and so they'll have 50 groups of these steel drum orchestras compete with one another, and you can go and watch and listen, and it sounds kind of wow, steel drum, it's kind of Caribbean vibe, not my kind of music, but going and watching it and realizing that it's actually laid out the way an orchestra is, where there's sections and it's a very stereo, immersive audio experience in person, was one of my favorite things that I've ever done. I wish I can remember what it's called. I'm going to look it up right now. Let's see.
I mean, you got to make it part of your Caribbean
Drum Festival.
Your Caribbean workshop coming up. Can we record an episode of this live so I can deduct the flight to Trinidad on my taxes? Y/N. Yes or no?
Yes. I'm going to say
great.
Yes. We could also just use it as inspiration for ideas and, workshopping things out that may or may not happen. But, sometimes you need to be someplace else to get that inspiration.
That is the lie that I have told myself to book flights to tropical places before. And I love it.
Very annoyed I can't find this. Anyway, if anybody ever comes across it, it's amazing. Steel drums and the entire like genre of music is from Trinidad. But for vacationing, go to Tobago.
Noted. I'm pretty full on tropical vacation at the moment because my life has been a tropical living for the last few years. So, when we were in Baltimore a few weeks ago, we were excited that it was cold. That was like an exciting thing for us. Just full of being chilly.
I love that. Yeah, makes sense. Grass is always greener, no matter what. I wonder the impact of somebody living in Southern California, how that seeps into someone's mindset and what they do in a way that you can't always appreciate when you're in that bubble. I think it actually impacts people a lot. Like the Tesla, for example, so many design decisions with that car are like so clearly not thought through because I'm assuming, they put cars.
There are a lot of reasons why. Yeah,
there's a lot of reasons. But like the way the door handles pop out and the things that they do to basically make it a comfortable vehicle during the winter are hilarious. It's so poorly designed. They test their cars in really rigorous, extreme climates, especially like up in Norway and stuff. But like clearly, whoever designed those door handles and everyone that signed off on them were in their own little Southern California bubble, not thinking about, anyway, I think that happens a lot. There was also something with the iPhone I can't quite recall. It was a design decision that was like, yeah, this works if you're in Southern California, and that's the only way it works. Everywhere else is stupid, but I can't quite recall what it was. Maybe something with their weather app. I don't know.
Nothing has ever been bad with the iPhone. We're not doing it. No Apple hate.
Sorry.
Oh,
yes,
my God.
very
I
tempting.
love that this has been a recurring theme where you just like have something you dislike about an Apple product. Gotta bring
To
it
be
up.
fair, I'm a big Apple fan, so don't.
The thousands of dollars that you have spent to have these negative opinions is high. It is a high barrier.
I am interested, though, just from a professional, how do you solve this problem? My MacBook desperately needs to be repaired, and it was expensive enough. I think it was almost $7,000 that I almost never buy AppleCare.
Oh, right, because you bought like the fully loaded.
Yeah, the 8 terabyte internal SSD alone was $2,000. Yeah, what?
That's just too much. That's too much space.
No. I thought it was interesting. I wrote a review about the MacBook Pro from a photographer's perspective, and I don't usually review tech products like that. And one of the things I realized in like assessing all the features and the decisions and where I was most happy that I spent the money, by far, the hard drive. Because I think previously, my largest hard drive was maybe 2 terabytes internal. And you make enough content just in photos. I don't even know how videographers deal with it, but just in photos, like you have to play a few times a year the shuffle game of, I can move these delivered images from 6 months ago to my external drive space, all that. But to have so much headroom that's literally not even close to ever being a problem is very freeing. And again, just my favorite feature. I'd have to maybe refer back to my review to get like the real details of how that all plays out, but best money I've spent. If I had to trade off any other thing, I would make a base, nothing else spec'd out except the hard drive. That's where my money would go first. Not 4 terabytes, 8. So anyway, just a weird tangent. Okay. But how do you solve the problem, right? I got AppleCare. I have a MacBook Pro that needs repair work done desperately. They're going to need to take this thing for a couple weeks. What do I do? I can't not have a computer to work for a couple weeks.
Well, if you
they don't have loaders.
If you had the Apple Business Program for Sam Hurd Photography Business LLC or whatever, then they should have limits, like loaners.
I need to call
the
them.
business. The business plan has loaners, not the AppleCare.
Oh, okay.
So
So
that's
I
the
don't
difference.
think I bought it through. I didn't know there was a difference in their care products.
Yeah,
I'm
so you
gonna-
can
I'm
sign
gonna
up
call.
as a business, and then you
I have that.
will
Yeah.
swap your. You can like swap your computers earlier. It's more or less you're leasing computers from Apple. They are then taking them and refurbishing them and reselling them, and you get to upgrade on a more regular basis. They get to charge your business, which is usually supposed to be a larger enterprise business or a startup, more money.
I was very
Hooray.
surprised that it was a couple of years ago. I guess they were just trying to make a big pivot into more business stuff. But they called me several times to say, like, hey, is this a business you're operating? I was like, yeah, it's just a business of one. But they were very persistent in getting me like registered in their business thing. I have no idea what benefits are included, but if that's one of them, I guess I should look it
might
up. All
be.
I know is
You
they
might be.
gave me an 800 number that was like the special business one. But, you know, I never
I love
call.
this for you. You should give them a call. We should do it right now. Pipe them into Riverside. Let's not do that. That sounds terrible. That would not be engaging content for me, let alone everyone listening. It wouldn't add nice hold music that would then probably get our podcast DCMA'd.
So if that doesn't work, yeah, it probably would. Do they monitor that?
I assume so.
I don't know. Anyway, yeah, I don't think they do. But because it's all fed through an RSS, maybe. I don't know. My plan, though, if this doesn't work out, is to purchase the same fully spec'd computer, clone everything over, and then just hope that they get it back to me within the return window. And if they don't...
Okay, but here's a problem. They don't sell that computer anymore. It's an M2 chip now, not an M1 chip. So you're going to buy a faster, better computer.
Yeah.
And you're going to clone it over. And then they're going to give you your slower version.
Yeah. This is the first laptop in a long time I haven't felt any temptation to, like, at least buy a fully spec'd computer to try out for a couple days. I buy and return stuff all the time. A lot of photography stuff. When I went to, where was it? Africa? I was on safari and I bought the like $7,000. It was 200 to 400 millimeter 2.8 or f4 lens. It's like $7,000 for Nikon. And I bought it on Amazon and then returned it 3 weeks later. And it was mint condition with everything. But, there's definitely
I just
something
love
in
that
their
you were
systems that will
like,
flag you if you do that too much. But yeah, it's like,
yeah, instead of renting it for whatever it would have been,
Exactly.
$800, you just took a little risk.
Yep. I do that with a lot of equipment that I review, and usually I send it back because I genuinely don't like it, like a lot of lenses that I roll through. But the return policies, as long as you don't abuse it too much, most places, and you have to triple check with Amazon. You're buying from Amazon and not one of the third-party sellers, because a lot of times there's a restocking fee from third-party sellers. So just pro tip there. But you know who doesn't have restocking fees? B&H and Adorama.
Hey.
Fees.
B&H.
But I'm sure all of them have little things in their internal systems that flag people that abuse that too much. I'm sure. But
So don't do this often, but do it when you need it.
I returned like a $15,000 medium format body once. It's like,
Wait, what? What body was that?
I can't remember. Oh, it was a phase one. What was it? It was the body, which is everything. Phase one is expensive, but not. I sold it a couple years ago. IQ3 medium back, and phase one stuff's all modular. So you have a body. They have one called the XF. I think that's the one I did that too.
XF camera system and XT camera. Those are our options.
Yeah. So you can. Yeah. Anyway. I wanted to try out the new XF body and ended up not needing it and sent it back. $15,000. It's like, wow, I can't, like, instant refund. And can I also say it's very odd to, I'm trying to think, the most expensive piece of camera equipment I ever owned was an entire phase one rig that I bought with some of my crypto earnings from way back when.
Wow,
and,
I hated that sentence.
Yes. I'm saying a lot of things you hate. I can feel it as I'm saying it. Did you hear me start to slow down?
Yeah.
But anyway, I bought an entire phase one rig, and it was $75,000. And I bought it just through PayPal on eBay and shot it. Oh, and by the way, awful system. It's just awful. The autofocus, first of all, medium format sensors because there's different degrees of medium format sensor sizes, just like with full frame versus cropped versus the super tiny Fuji. What's that? Micro Four Thirds. They have the exact same thing in the medium format range. And Phase 1, I think, is the only one that has. It's still not true medium format, but it's really close to the digital sensor being the size of the actual film. It's so funny to have such an expensive camera and rig and have the autofocus only work in the center and hunt and peck like you wouldn't believe. There's no tracking of anything. It immediately made me realize, like, all of these super famous celebrities and photographers that use these incredibly high-end cameras, like, everything comes together in this one moment, and then you hit the shutter to attain autofocus, and it's like this awkward 20-year-old focus hunting. It's hilarious. I found it to be a really odd realization. The files are beautiful. I think that was a 100 megapixel sensor, but
yeah, they have 100 or 150. Those are your options.
this was several years ago, and I bought it used, by the way. So that was actually getting a deal on that entire rig.
Man, this is
Phase
quite
one
a.
story.
How do you? So you shoot Canon R 3 or 4 or whatever it is, right?
The 3.
The 3. I don't know the numbers.
body.
Right, like that's a regular body, right? Like, yeah, a prosumer body, right? Like, it's not.
Oh no, it's their. They don't label it their flagship because they're launching something better, but it's definitely, as far as I can tell, like the flagship camera. It's got all the bells and whistles in terms of the materials, build quality, all that. But the R6.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Sorry, I
R6.
misunderstood. I was thinking of the mirrorless R body things, not the big boys.
But I have used the R. I would say is the very first one they launched in mirrorless. That is sort of a prosumery body across the board. But
Yeah.
why?
Oh, I'm just curious on like how you. So like I have a Leica Q2. Very fortunate situation where it was compensation for work that I did, not a thing that I paid for myself. Before that, I shot a Nikon D810, which is a very nice full frame Nikon from
Love that camera.
14, 15. Like, the colors are perfection. Autofocusing is wonderful. Hooray. Like, that was my professional rig. And then before that, I was a Canon 5D Mark II or a 60 or whatever, right? Like studio camera lenses from when I was running a studio back in 2011, right? But like in my own ordering during the time of running that studio and just in my own life right now, I have this like trouble of figuring out how much money to spend on a thing because... Okay, greatest lie in photography that's ever been told that I hate, that I'd love to kill right now. Gear doesn't matter. Gear absolutely matters.
Yes.
Like, every single person who has ever said gear doesn't matter is saying that because they have $100,000 worth of gear, right? Like, the person who's like shooting an exclusively Leica setup is like, yeah, gear's not that important. I just, whatever fixes to my hand, it's like, okay, cool. It is though, right? Like, just because you also can take a nice,
super important. Yeah.
right. Like a nice photo with your iPhone doesn't mean that like you're gonna get booked for work because you have a nice iPhone photo, right? Like, the amount of quality that you have to output for clients to happily take your services and provide you money is like, there's a bar, right? And like, yes, you can create wonderful things with like an XTI
It's even, I think you were kind of about to touch on it, like a perception thing, which is, I think, one reason Phase 1 is so heavily used in commercial work, because it's just, everyone knows it's expensive. It's a really substantial looking camera.
Yep.
And the look of a camera, usually the larger ones, absolutely impacts not just like stepping away from the technical side of things, but impacts the feel of the person that is being photographed. It's one of the things that happens with film. People, if you tell them it's film and they see that it's a film camera or whatever, they get a little more like, oh, I'm gonna be a little more invested in this because film's expensive. It's a perception thing as much as anything else. But continue. I kind of derailed you.
Right. No. So I just mean like this idea that gear doesn't matter is bullshit, right? Like gear absolutely matters. And the amount, like the quality of your camera gear will impact the output of your thing, of your work. It's just not the only thing that matters, right? You know, that's what people are trying to say is like gear isn't going to get you to where you like to the mountaintop, but it's going to help, right? Like it's easier to climb Everest when you have oxygen tanks and like a good coat, right? You know, like it is.
And but the other thing about gear is, especially if you are a professional, you need something that is super versatile. So yeah, you can dumb the Canon R3 down to take the most basic iPhone looking photo ever, but it can also, you know, be firing on all cylinders to photograph like an Olympic sport. Like the versatility is well worth paying for because professionals need it generally, because especially wedding photographers. The EOS RP, for example, that's it was the second mirrorless camera Canon released. It was after the R. Oh, sorry, popcorn's here. It was a great camera, but very dumbed down in terms of like the focus points. It was like a quarter of the focus points and much slower in every other way. And yeah, I could get by shooting a wedding with it if I had to, but no, you want that lack of friction so you can focus on other things like lighting. And that's another way equipment really matters. If it removes any layer of friction in my decision-making process, I buy it, essentially. And that's become rarer and rarer as, you know, time goes on. Hopefully that happens for everybody as they get better at something. But yeah, that's a really important thing to pay attention to.
Okay. Because like I briefly used and borrowed your Hasselblad, whatever the airline number.
907 X50C, which I thought I read was the speed of light, but I think it's actually not. I think just C is the lowercase c is the denotation for the speed of light. And I guess being multiplied across, I don't remember. Anyway, it's the 907 X50C.
Yeah, the airplane, the Hasselblad airplane model number, camera, whatever. We're not going to actually know this 907X, whatever. So I borrowed that. I loved it. It was beautiful. It was wonderful. I want to buy it. I don't need to buy it. That is a terrible thing for me to spend $7,000 on at any point, right? Like it is way too much camera. I don't shoot professionally. I don't, even when I do shoot, I don't shoot in a studio setting, which is when that thing would shine the most, for sure. Right? And so I'm still like, I'm looking at my beautiful, perfect, best in class street photography camera that I use, which is the Q2, which does literally everything I need perfectly, and I've never loved a camera more. And I'm like, hang on, well,
kind of want this other one. Yeah,
right. And that's bananas, and it's wrong for right. You know, like it is like literally wrong. I know that this is just like capitalism, just pointing me at a thing and like, if I buy this, I'll be happy. But like I know that it won't do it. But there is, you know, like there has been a huge difference in my day-to-day shooting and how often I'm making work and like existing with photography as a creative habit, in the difference between my old Nikon and my current Q2, because that Nikon was like 7 pounds, right? Like when you put a 2.8 24-70 on it, it's like 5 pounds, and that is a lot, right? Like that'll hurt your shoulder after a couple hours, and you don't notice it, and then but like suddenly your camera's not there, or right, you know, and you're just not taking it with you because it's heavy and so like that shift, right, mattered for me a lot. Like it mattered so much. I shot in 2021, which is when I got the camera. Before I got it in end of September, and the number of photos I had taken up to that point was like 110, 150, right, that year. Okay. Like I just like it was we were living in Tulum at the time. The jungle is hot and humid, and having 4 pounds or 5 pounds of a thing pressing my shirt to me just wasn't like an interesting thing. So I only took photos when we went to the beach one day and when we went swimming in a, you know, like underground jungle swimming hole called the cenote.
Very cool.
And that was it, right? You know, like but I'm not taking it to go get tacos, even though there's so many photographic moments that happen on a walk anywhere, let alone in a beautiful town such as any in Mexico. And so like I just didn't take it with me. And then I got the Leica, and over the next 3 months I shot like 2,400 photos, 2,500 photos.
Yeah.
Right. And like
thing. Absolutely. Especially a company and brand like Leica, who has the legacy, mythical storytelling, like, legendary vibe.
The Leica look.
Yeah. It's a very inspiring camera to shoot with. And the Hasselblad is right there with it. They have the legacy, the format, and the 500. I'm not super familiar because they're mostly film, but the 500 series bodies and everything are, I think, what they used on the moon. Although Nikon has been used a lot. I think Nikon is actually has the record for most photos taken in space by astronauts. Anyway, but the Hasselblad is amazing. When I see you next, you're lucky you didn't try it with the 58 1.2 lens.
With the lens really that makes it work easily.
Yeah, that lens, not only is it just a beautiful look that you literally can't get any other way, except for the Fuji body, which is the same sensor, just in the Fuji medium format body.
Yeah.
Anyway, but that lens size and weight distribution and the way it can sit when you have the strap around your neck is perfect. It's so
this isn't information I want. I don't want to know this. This isn't going to help my problem.
The lens points down, and it's just like having this beautiful little box right next to you that you can boom pop up and take a photo whenever you need, and then it just hangs back down. And it's my favorite. One of the reasons it's my favorite orientation is because the weight and the lens all points down to the ground versus every other camera where the lens points out, and that's just awkward because you like bump it with your
you get that weird
arm.
Pressure point.
Exactly. This camera it's almost like wearing a purse, I guess. But
what's wrong with wearing a purse?
Nothing. It's just a really bad. I'm trying to think of the next best thing. I was going to say like a fanny
messenger bag
or something. It's not that though. It's more like a purse, I guess. Yeah.
Fanny packs are coming back. They're back. They're with bucket hats. My line is very easy, right? Like I don't need this professionally. That makes this a very easy thing for me. So, other hobbyists, listen to yourself and know when you're lying. That's an easy thing. But for a professional, I feel like it's a little harder to like nail that balance of like, you said you buy it if it removes friction, but like what level of friction are we talking about? Right. Cause like, you were talking a couple weeks ago about the apps that you subscribe to for your backups, right? Like that removes friction, but it's also like $100, right? That's like that's not a big expense, but a $5,000 camera body or a $7,000 lens or something like that is a big expense, right? When you're spending more than a single booking on just a single piece of equipment, right? And like, yes, you use this all the time. You shoot 40 to 50 weddings a year and have many sessions, right? Like it adds up and you should buy things immediately, right? If you need them, but it's hard. Like how much friction are you trying to remove when you purchase something new that will be better, right? Like is 2% friction enough to buy a thing?
Yeah, I would say. It depends on the state of your business and finances and all that. I mean, it's not wise at all to upgrade your equipment if you're trying to make money. Like the goal should be to like maximize your profitability for sure. But if everything's flowing well and 2% is more than enough for me to upgrade to a better camera for sure.
Wild. I love that. Good for you.
I would say almost any amount, but
if it registers a single percentage point, we're in.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to measure too, but I obsess a lot about identifying those little points of friction. I can't remember whose talk it was, but there was an entire TED talk done by a really smart psychologist. All that sticks out to me from the talk is that he was similarly, maybe he kickstarted my obsession with finding these little pain points in how I do whatever. But he had this one example of how tedious and annoying it is to take the little stickers off of like fruits and vegetables when you buy them at the grocery store. Those stupid little stickers that don't come off well, that then stick to your finger as you try and flick them into the trash can. Like, this is a perfect example of something everybody just does and it lives with as a thing, and it should be solved. It doesn't have to be like that. I don't know who to talk to at the fruit producers to fix this problem, but like, trying to just think about how you operate when you're doing your craft, or really in any way in the world, and figuring out those little pain points is so important. A big area to also kind of apply this to is bags and what you're actually wearing, because that has the added complication of, okay, yes, this removes friction, but do I look like an idiot wearing it, right? Like that's another thing. But like the zippers of bags, the orientation of how the zip is to where I can, like, I use a sling bag. It's very important for me that I can leave the zipper open and not zip it up every single time, put it back on my bag, and all my lenses don't come tumbling out. Like, that's very, very important. A lot of sling bags, that is exactly what happens. You leave it half open and you turn it just the right angle, everything comes tumbling out. So bad bag. But yeah, it's the size and chunkiness of the zipper, the feel and texture of the actual like tip that you pull, like all of that stuff is super important when you hyper obsess about these things. And the more you can identify those layers, the easier it is to just like become creative and focus on like the work and everything else that actually matters in the output. It can be something really small, but if you find 24 really small things, they add up into just a completely different shooting experience. I was going to mention one other thing that played right into that, but this is why I obsessively never use lens caps. The amount of I'm sure we've talked about that before, because I think I changed my roller bag to something else, and I mentioned like half the comments I got about this little viral video that I made were, oh my God, who trusts this guy? Like, he doesn't use lens caps. This is ridiculous. Like, he's a professional. People debate about lens caps all the time, but the amount of nuisance and trouble and thinking you have to do to keep track of your lens caps is a lot. It's a lot. It's a very basic thing, but figuring out where it is, having to like find it, those interactions add up so much. Along with, if you're shooting a wedding, the ever-present overhead of time, but the ever-present overhead you have to do of being careful not to drop the damn thing in the middle of a wedding ceremony and be a distraction. I can't tell you how many second shooters I've worked with that's exactly what happens. They drop their lens caps. I can almost see it coming based on the person. Like, I
am so excited to do a second shoot with you, Sam. I'm volunteering myself. We're gonna hook ourselves with microphones.
It's funny because I have a feeling a lot of people that have second shot with me and expect to like see something interesting. It's not very interesting.
Shooting a wedding is boring. It's just a wedding, right? Like, you're just shooting a wedding. There's not.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just trying to set expectations.
No. I'm gonna try and get you to record an episode during shooting the wedding.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Right. You know, like, we'll have like 20 minutes between receptions or whatever when we're eating pizza, being like, well, that was, like, I'm not expecting to learn anything. I've shot like hundreds of weddings on my own. Awesome. I'm not like.
I love that. Okay, good. The other example of this, like, and I've bought them all. I've tried them all. The strap systems people use to try and balance the weight of cameras in a way like that. I cannot think of a more distracting, problematic thing to.
The little hooks where you hook them onto your chest. I hate those things.
Yeah,
I hate them.
Now, people love them. They swear by them, but I think they're lying to themselves. I really do, because one, the weight distribution, you always have to have two cameras if it's going to be properly distributed, right? If you just have one camera, now it's crisscross, so it offsets a little bit, but your weight's going to one side, and that gets weird. And it doesn't have to be much. My eye doctor actually gave me this epiphany. He asked what I do for a living, because my vision's very poor, and I'm concerned about being blind before I'm able to retire, right? Told him I'm a photographer, and I said, like, I'm starting to see floaters more and more. Like, my vision badness has plateaued, thankfully. It's still quite bad. Negative 9.5 is my contact prescription. But now I'm starting to see other things like floaters and stuff, and they're just like, yeah, that's just going to happen. He's like, but one thing you can do when you take a photo, if you're right eye dominant, use your right eye, but make the habit of either switching to your other eye as much as you can. So that I do that. I oscillate between either eye as much as I can, like back to back, or take the photo with your dominant eye and then review the photo with your less dominant eye, your left one, because over time, given the entire duration of your life, if you only use your dominant whatever, it's going to deteriorate faster.
That's wild.
Poor eye health. Yeah, just like it. So, you have a strap that isn't perfectly balanced because you have one camera instead of two all the time. That may not feel like a problem, but eventually it's probably going to be. That's my guess. But it was a really interesting piece of advice that he gave me. Anyway, I was going to mention one other thing. Oh, yes. Unfortunately, the ultimate nightmare. I really try not to tell people what to do without them having asked. But I really should have told this poor photographer. We were at Banff at a conference, and he was very excited, new photographer, fully loaded with like a quick mount lens release thing up here, and then another like belt system to hold your lens down here, plus a strap for I don't know why.
Yeah.
He looked like you could knock him over and his stuff still wouldn't get messed up. Like everything had a place and it was all secure. But I should have told him, like, you don't want to be walking around on these rocks with water with things dangling in straps and lens mounts that you have to perfectly attach, or you'll put it in and it will eventually like work its way out. Anyway, so yeah, he dropped his camera body. I knew it was going to happen, and it did. He was just leaning over too much, and it fell in. I don't know how he dropped it exactly. But
fell in? It fell into the lake?
Entire camera with lens attached, fell into the water. Just blip.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oops.
So poor guy. But it breaks your heart. But the more things that you have to like hold your crap in, there's a tipping point where it's too much, and you're actually more likely to lose track of your crap. And worst case scenario, I can't think of much worse other than maybe a lava pit, have your camera just completely be submerged. Sand's pretty bad. Lava
pit is like game over, right? Car, freeway's bad. I filmed a time lapse. I was taking a road trip from Michigan to Idaho with a friend, and he had just mounted original Mac Mini into his like 2005 Mustang. And yeah, he like built in a tiny touch screen, so I could watch like movies while he was driving, because he wasn't going to let me drive his brand new Mustang. But he wanted company on the road trip. I was like, I got it, buddy. Let's film a time lapse. And so we took his original iSight camera and mounted it via the magnetic mount to the roof in the center of the car, and then drove. And it worked wonderfully. It was incredible, right up until a rock kicked up and knocked off the camera. And then we found it.
What are the unfortunately.
It was really impressive. There's like a frame right before the rock hits it, and then it flies off, gets disconnected. We lose video. So we pulled over and then tried to find it, and we saw it in the middle of the road, and we're like, yeah, there it is. And a semi, literally comically movie style, ran over it right as we saw it. And that is how he lost his.
Could recover the footage still?
Footage was already in the Mac Mini that was mounted to the thing, right? It was just the camera. So there went his $300 iSight, because that's what it used to cost.
iSight.
Yeah.
That's a great name.
Bring it back. Bring it back.
Of Apple news. I think they're planning to call it their mixed reality product. I think they're planning to call it Apple Reality.
That is the dream. That's literally the dream. I cannot tell you how many nightmares I have over that, because all of the code names for their like AR and VR visor have been Apple Glass or Apple Glasses. And that has like literally kept me up at night. I tried to fight Tom about the name for like months. of Glass, because I was like, no, Apple's going to change it, and then they're never going to feature us again. They're never going to show us in the App Store. They're never going to talk to us, or they're just going to make us change it.
I did not think about where you're going with that, but that's a really good point.
It has kept me up at night, literally trying to think of what they're going to call it, and then they finally were like, it's probably going to be Apple Reality or whatever, and I'm like, fuck yeah, and then I do a little dance.
It's weird how it's never really what you think it's going to be. I remember the controversy with iPad being the name of an iPad. Now it seems normal, but I was like, oh, it's going to be like the iSlate or the Apple Slate, something like that. Like, Slate is way cooler, but no, they went with iPad, and I remember how controversial. I don't know if you did. Maybe it was just
I love the name. I thought it was great.
I did too, but I remember everyone an adjustment. But it played off of iPod, which is weird that they like inconsistently do that. Like it's the Apple Watch, it's not the iWatch. But anyway, I would like to see them return to the I in front of things. I don't know why they moved away from that. iBook.
Probably money. It's probably money.
Yeah, probably money.
You can charge more for things that say MacBook Pro instead of iBook Pro. Anyway, this is probably the first episode of Endless Appreciation. Probably, maybe. Let's, you know what we can do? We can just casually release the first episode on Tuesday when we announce it. Because we announce on
we should do that. Yeah.
Monday. So we should just be like, first episode's coming tomorrow.
Let's just do it.
Let's just
do you think we need okay, so thinking about promotion of each episode, I've been back and forth with my own previous podcasts. Do you the day before hype people up about the thing coming out, or do you just wait until it's out? I am of the belief that just wait till it's out and then do the promotion. But it seems like everybody everywhere, not just with podcasts, but any type of like thing, they always like pre-hype. Get ready.
Yeah.
Get ready to like sign up for my workshop. My workshop's going to be announced very soon. And it's all artificial. Like they could announce the workshop that day and start registration, but they like build hype, and it's just a strange.
It depends on the situation, right? So like our goals and our needs for this podcast are probably a little different than someone who's trying to sell at a workshop.
Yeah.
And so, like our needs around this are long and consistent, right? Like we're building a consistent thing for ourselves, you and I, and then also as, like being published by Glass, it'll be, Glass adjacent and important for the community growing and like for people to understand the decisions that we're making a little bit more. So it's more of like a long-term thing as opposed to a short-term thing of we need 1,000 listeners day one, otherwise it's a failure. Yeah. And so I think that is what usually
makes sense,
impacts promotions schedules. And
now
so
that you
like
say it, that seems very obvious. Yeah, good point.
Yeah. Well, look at me, marketing professional over here, living the dream.
It's your literal job.
Let me tell you, I wake up every day and I'm like, I know this is better than coding, but there are some days at the end of the day, I'm like, I should have learned to code, right? Like, that was my bad. Which is a fun joke because I did learn how to code. I knew how to code. I very purposely left that behind.
Okay, this is it. This is the one. This is the first official episode, and I'm not sure you can even hear me.
Oh no, I can. I just am not sure. I am not as sure as you are that it's the first official episode. Okay, so here's a fun list of things to do. Okay, everyone, when you start a podcast, an important thing to do is have a launch date. I think that is a good thing that you should set before you start. Having now done this without a launch date, that was our mistake. We should have arbitrarily picked a date a while ago.
Yeah, I agree.
That's our bad. There's number one.
Okay.
Number two. What other helpful tips can we have? Should have a very fun intro. I think we should have danced or something. I don't know. Dancing doesn't make sense. This is an audio thing. A little song. Whenever you are, Sam was like 3 minutes late to today's recording session.
My
very
laptop needed battery.
Very ruthless, very
Can you hear
inconsiderate.
me okay, by the way?
Yeah.
It's loud
Yeah,
enough?
I
Okay,
can.
just make sure.
Yeah. So the when that happens, I revisit my early days in the radio. My father runs radio stations. The first time I was on the radio was April 1st, 1999. They were getting a new morning show host. They were teasing that there was going to be a new co-host, and whole new morning show. Hooray for, weeks they were announcing this. And then April 1st rolled around, and it was my brother and I just saying nonsense as
Tell me you have a
9
recording
and
of this.
I hope so.
Yeah.
There's got to be a tape somewhere. But it was, it was us just talking